Okay, this is kind of pissing me off. Not only do I have people working over there, and I did a test, and it seems like you can still hear me, but I've recorded this thing twice. My test worked and recorded, but it keeps not saving it, so it starts to piss me off a little bit. So what I'm saying, though, is that, one, I have a lot of respect for you and your disposition. I tend to like to call people by their handles. I don't mean to be impersonal. It's just that sometimes people are like, Glenn thinks such and such, and I'm like, who the hell is Glenn? And I just watched 5 videos of Glenn's, but his name is the amazing G or something. I don't know he's Glenn, so I like to use people's handle. Then you can do a search on YouTube. You can find these people. Then again, it's not a total defense. I mean, I called you MM, and people wouldn't know that was modern mystic necessarily, except for it wasn't a comment to your video. So my thing is a couple things. I mean, I don't want to use the word determinism as some kind of slur, because I do respect you. But if the issue is that you don't like book philosophy, fine, I'm with you on that. That's why I'm online discussing philosophy with real people, because I believe that is real philosophy, the people's real worldviews. But it doesn't mean that there's not some good tools from philosophy to apply. And the word determinism, if push comes to shove, you think that a single set of causes leads to a single set of results, then you're a determinist. If you believe that in principle, if you knew enough information, you could tell the future, then you are, in principle, a determinist. And, that's just the way that it is. And I'm going to point out that with quantum mechanics, science currently does not support the idea of determinism. Now, it may in the future, again, a new paradigm may come, or even in quantum mechanics, there are deterministic interpretations, like the many histories interpretation of quantum mechanics is determinist in the sense we're talking about. Because instead of saying that when there's a single set of causes that leads to 10 possible results, that instead of it being random, all 10 happen. That's the many histories interpretation. All 10 of those possibilities happen. Suddenly becomes deterministic. But our experience is still just a slice. We're still experiencing one of those results. And so it doesn't really change our condition as experiential creatures that we are having a non-deterministic experience. With dualism, even more so. I mean, the kind of dualism we're talking about here is Cartesian dualism, which is body and soul dualism. The idea that there is a soul separate from the body, but either superimposed or inhabiting the body. And this soul is taken to sort of exist in some ethereal plane that is just overlapping with this physical plane. And one of the purposes seems to have been to deify. I mean, the soul is an abstraction of the mind, and the idea is to deify the mind as if the mind can work without all of the limitations we have with bodies of friction and gravity and uncomfort and imperfection. And the idea is that the soul could be perfect, and since it's a metaphor for the mind, we get to think that our thinking is perfect, which is, of course, laughable. The reason you and I are getting very close in our agreement is because there are not really so many people that are as thorough in their denial of dualism. The term dualism is a good term, and to be aware of in the kind of philosophy that you're talking about. Your arguments against will are usually arguments against dualism, and so I'm in the position of agreeing with those arguments in the conclusion that I think they actually go for. But when you make the leap and say there's no will, then you're also accepting an assumption that dualism requires the will, and I think this relates to your concept of I. Another book philosophy term, atomism, is the idea that an atom is something that isn't indivisible. It can be a concept. It's not just about material things like we see in physics and natural philosophy. And I don't think anything is atomic, certainly not at our scale. And so the I is not going to be a single thing, but that's not a loss of the I. Just because the I is a network of parts that interact to create the phenomena of I does not mean that I doesn't exist. It exists as a network. And so, that's not the loss of I at all. To me, the neurons are all willing. When they all will together, that phenomena is us willing. So I hope this explains a little bit where I'm coming from. And with all due respect, and I do respect you, you're obviously you're obviously a good man and a good thinker. To me, it's obvious anyway. And so, take care.